morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where today we have some surprisingly controversial stories to discuss. And the first one truly tests the famous phrase, "In Nolan we trust." Now, you might have seen the headline late last week that One Direction's Harry Styles is likely going to appear in Christopher Nolan's upcoming World War II film, Dunkirk. And that would mean that Harry Styles would co-star in a film with Mark Rylance, who just won Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars, Kenneth Branagh, and Tom Hardy. Now, this blew the minds of many a Christopher Nolan fan, although many did fall back on that famous saying, "In Nolan we trust." And I actually think that we should trust in Nolan in this instance, because I think this is a very sound decision from a business perspective. Some people said, oh, the suits must have pushed this, they must have insisted they put Harry Styles in the movie. And if they did insist, I'm glad that Christopher Nolan listened to them, because it's, suits at the studio serve a very specific purpose. It's their job to make sure that your creative project is sound from a business perspective. And as I've said before, they had no business letting George Miller run crazy with such a big budget for an R rating. They should have been like, George, you're kind of creating like a no-win situation here where your movie just probably won't be able to make enough money. Although I think, of course, that Deadpool is a game changer considering how much money that movie made at the box office as an R-rated film. But at the same time, that had like a $60 million budget as opposed to the hundreds of millions of dollars that George Miller spent on Mad Max. So studios need to step in there and they need to say, hey, and I believe this is how the conversation went down. And maybe this was Christopher Nolan and his wife slash producer Emma Thomas's idea. But someone said, this is a World War II movie with no no fancy visual effects, no sci-fi elements. It's just a World War II drama, right? About something that's very big in the UK, but isn't very big, in terms of historical relevance to the big movie markets of the world, right? Like a movie can make tons of money in the UK, respectively, and it will not be very much compared to how much money that movie could make in the United States and in China, the two big movie markets. Oh, China, of course, we were finding out, is a little bit inflated over there. They're a little bit of cheats, but still, they're providing the numbers, and at this point in time, those numbers are considered legit by the record books. So anyway, Harry Styles, though, you could argue, is really very big in the UK from One Direction, obviously. But I also think he's obviously incredibly popular in the United States. So by putting Harry Styles in your film, I think that, and I saw someone comment on this in the article in one of the trades comment sections, and I thought this really hit the nail on the head. They said, they figured out a way to market this movie, a World War II movie, to the younger audience. And I was like, yes, that's true. Suddenly, you're going to have a bunch of One Direction fans interested in, a Christopher Nolan Dunkirk movie. So I think it's a very good choice. I mean, you have to cast a bunch of young actors anyway, because tragically, that's who fights on the front lines when it comes to, ground wars. Again, as I said, tragically. So I think that Harry Styles, he's not going to be a lead, but he's going to have probably a pretty solid role. And of course, maybe this is just the first domino as he, works his way towards a legitimate acting career. On that note, rumor has it that he's going to have a small part in season 2 of Scream Queens, Ryan Murphy's show on Fox. And he could potentially, pull a Justin Timberlake. And I think Justin Timberlake, while nobody would say Justin Timberlake is a great actor, I think that Justin Timberlake has a very respectable acting career. And so Harry Styles could either do what Justin Timberlake does. I have to say, if Justin Timberlake perhaps were more successful in movies, maybe he'd stop making music. He hasn't made music in a little bit for now. But I think both, just like Justin Timberlake, Harry Styles could straddle the two. He could go between Hollywood movies and the music scene, and just do just enough in both sides to keep his career alive. But I think this is very interesting. I think it's good to see Christopher Nolan get a little bit more commercial. I think he had a little bit of a misfire with Interstellar. I know many of you will disagree, but Interstellar did not meet the expectations for a Nolan film. And so I think he's a little bit in trouble, and I think he has to prove himself. And I also think he really wants to win an Oscar. I think that's one of the reasons he's making the Dunkirk movie in the first place. I strongly believe that this is Nolan's Schindler's List. I'd also finally like to add that one person who should be a little worried about this is Leonardo DiCaprio, as Harry Styles looks very much like a young Leo. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, what's the controversy about Beetlejuice 2 for the second story? Well, how about that the latest quote from Showbiz Spy is totally made up. Yes, a lot of people got excited when a little-known site called Showbiz Spy had a direct quote from Tim Burton saying that the script was approved and Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton were on board for the sequel, and so it would be moving forward quickly. But it turns out that Showbiz Spy, I don't know how they had the gall to do this, but that's not a quote from Tim Burton. He never gave them a quote. And so they decided to run a fake quote, it looks like, for clickbait. And this reminded me a lot of the Labyrinth remake story that broke right after David Bowie's death that was reported by trades. And then, of course, they didn't even bother to fact check that. And, one of the screenwriters who was credited with working on it had to take to Twitter and say, I'm not touching that. That's incredibly disrespectful to, David Bowie's legacy. So Labyrinth remake, lie. Beetlejuice 2, also a lie. Now, that's not to say it's not still in play. It is still in play, but it's very far from actually happening. Tim Burton's very busy. He's finishing up Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We should probably be seeing a trailer for that, I imagine, pretty soon. And then also a live-action Dumbo for Disney, after he did such wonderful things for them with Alice in Wonderland. Although he did not continue with the sequel, which is interesting. But we'll see how that sequel turns out with James Bobbin at the helm. But anyway, as for Michael Keaton, I think Michael Keaton might very soon be willing to push Beetlejuice 2 forward, and that maybe could make it finally work. Because I would guess that the person holding this whole thing up is Michael Keaton. Winona Ryder sure as heck isn't doing anything. And I think that Tim Burton's career, it's hit or miss. And I think that Beetlejuice 2, if he can make it really big and really fantastic, could be a big win for him. So I could see him wanting to pursue it as well. But Michael Keaton is in the midst of trying to win himself an Oscar. He's trying to be a very serious actor, and I think playing Beetlejuice would not help that. Now, he didn't win for Birdman. He wasn't even nominated for Spotlight. And if he doesn't get nominated and win for The Founder, maybe if he gets nominated and doesn't win, he'll try again. But if he doesn't even get nominated again for The Founder, which is the origin of McDonald's story, where he plays a character who cheats the McDonald's brothers out of their business idea and forms McDonald's. If he doesn't get even nominated there, I believe he will push for Beetlejuice 2, because I think his window of opportunity will be closing, and it's clear that he's not going to win an Oscar. So I think The Founder, keep an eye on that movie later this year, because it's going to be a really big determinant in whether or not we see Beetlejuice 2 anytime soon. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day is an update on this screening room company that Facebook's Sean Parker, played by Justin Timberlake in The Social Network, coming full circle. He is trying to get this screening room, streaming service up and running, and we talked about it last week. This is where you pay $150 for the set-top box that has anti-piracy software. So it's supposed to protect you from piracy on the film. Then, after you pay that initial $150 fee for the box, if you want to rent a movie the day it comes out in theaters, you have to pay $50. You have 48 hours to watch it. You also get 2 free movie tickets to see it in the theater if you'd like, at a later date. Those probably will be good past the 48 hours of the rental. And then the reason this is working is they're going to give, $50 for the movie, $20 will go to the studio, $20 will go to the exhibitors, and $10 will go to screening room, and that's how they'll make their profit. Now, some people were like, some of you like this idea a lot. I like it quite a bit, and then some people are saying it'll be the death of movie theaters. I think movie theaters are already dying. I think they're going up market. I think that you're creating a situation where either you're going to have like the reserved seats, when they upcharge you. As I said, it costs $20 to go to a movie here in New York City, non-3D. And so 18 non-reserve seating. So I think that that's really what they're going. I think that movie theaters are in trouble anyway. Now, I think that for a movie like Batman v Superman, for instance, that would not be available on screening room. I think that the studios will cherry pick which pictures they want to make available day and date. And it'll be the smaller films, like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot would be available. Even 10 Cloverfield Lane would be available on your set-top box. Now, they're getting a huge number of directors to sign on to this. Steven Spielberg, Peter Jackson, J.J. Abrams, Ron Howard, and Brian Grazer all signed on last week. Then later in the week, or over the weekend, the latest headline is that Martin Scorsese has signed on, Taylor Hackford and Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy's husband and Steven Spielberg's longtime producer. Then also AMC Theaters has signed on to this, and that might be all that screening room needs once the studios sign on, because AMC just recently purchased Carmike Cinemas, and that makes them the biggest exhibitor in the country. So even if Regal says, we won't play your movie if you put it on screening room in our theaters, the studios could say that's okay because AMC will, and they have enough theaters to blanket the country and give us the theater count that we need. And not every studio is going to sign up for this. Disney doesn't seem to be interested at all. But if they can even get just 2 studios to participate, and those studios have money start rolling in for their smaller pictures that desperately need the help, I think the other studios will follow. Now, also interestingly, over the weekend or late on Friday, Alamo Drafthouse came out against this very strongly in one of the trades in an interview. And they said this was a horrible idea, it would kill moviegoing, and it just was overall stupid. But you have to realize that Alamo Drafthouse is a very small theater chain, and so I think this would hurt them considerably. But they're also an upcharge, movie-going experience. They're opening one here in Brooklyn and New York City, and their tickets will, of course, I think, be more expensive. But I think Alamo Drafthouse, I don't know if you can really fight the future, and I think that, as you'll see later today in Movie Math, a lot of movies are having a very serious problem at the box office, and something has to be done, because I think the mid-range movie is almost dead. All right, so let's go on to the viewer question of the day. This comes from Sam Gaelic. So Sam Gaelic says, Grace, ton of emojis. I have a question. You said in your Daredevil review that you think that Daredevil would be as popular as Game of Thrones, Mad Men, and Breaking Bad. Wouldn't be, I think he means, because of the way Netflix releases them. But House of Cards seems as popular as all 3 shows. Why do you think Daredevil is being overshadowed by House of Cards? I mean, you don't have to make this the viewer question tomorrow, please. So that's very nice from Sam. I wanted to go over this because Daredevil, of course, is coming out on Friday. I will be reviewing all the episodes individually, but I thought I also wanted to clarify some of the shows that Sam referenced here. For instance, Mad Men was a very popular show at the media, so it got a lot of coverage in the press. But Mad Men actually didn't have good ratings, and I think it's one of the reasons that John Hamm and a number of the cast members from that show can't find any work, whereas people on Game of Thrones are in movies and other television shows left and right. Breaking Bad, also you're seeing a lot of people get work out of that show because it was so popular with actual viewers. But Mad Men, that's not the case. Mad Men was something that the media pushed considerably. But all of those shows benefited from people talking about them week to week. I mean, just think about when Game of Thrones, Mad Men, and when Game of Thrones is on, and when Mad Men and Breaking Bad were on, because those shows, of course, are no longer on the air. But you would see stories about them every week after they aired. There'd be, the recaps. There'd be the latest, gossip out of the show. They'd be like, can you believe this happened? And sites like, all the entertainment sites could run 2 or 3 stories a week based on the latest episode. So they were constantly, in front of you. Now, House of Cards, I was very impressed that when House of Cards debuted, and it hooked me. I had to watch it. It took up all my time till I finished it. But House of Cards impressively trended when it debuted, the day it debuted. It was a big deal. But then it quickly disappeared from everyone's radar, and no one's talking about it anymore. No one's talking about it at all. And there were big surprises in this season, twists and turns and more bold moves made that no one discussed, that no one made new articles about because they don't drive viewer click traffic, because the situation is everyone's watching at a different time. So there's no window where the next morning everybody's searching for what did Frank Underwood do? That's not happening because everyone's watching at their own pace. So you have a situation where House of Cards is like a big deal like the day it debuts, but it gets maybe one day or maybe a weekend. And then after that, no one's discussing it anymore. And I think that's what hurts the Netflix shows. I think they won't release their numbers for viewership, so we're not quite sure how it's working. But Netflix is a special situation because you don't pay per show, you pay a subscription fee. So all Netflix cares about is keeping that subscriber number up and growing. So they just want to make sure that you feel like your subscription price is worth it, right? And so, for instance, this weekend, not only does Daredevil debut, but so does the Pee Wee Herman movie. And they've been very busy. House of Cards came out just like 2 weeks ago, and they're just really, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2, like a week or 2 before that, they just have a glut of content right now. And also, there's some stuff that they're putting out there that doesn't get any attention. I saw an ad on some of the trades recently that Will Arnett just got a show on there, and I'm like, wow, that was poorly advertised. And they also started another show, something about a couple dating, and they sent me an email, and they were like, maybe you want to watch this? And I was like, no, I don't, because that's the other thing. I think streaming, when you drop all the episodes at once, is a very big commitment to ask from your viewing audience, right? Because House of Cards interrupted my life because I needed to watch all 13 episodes as soon as humanly possible. Whereas there's just an hour commitment a week. you're more willing to try stuff. So I think that's another problem that Netflix has. Now, I think the binge watching works for Netflix, but I still think that their shows, they have to really get their attention during awards season. People talk about them during awards season when they win all the awards, but if they don't win the awards, then people aren't talking about it. So I think that's what they really do live or die by that. And even the Orange is the New Black creator has talked about that she's not sure that binge viewing is the best thing for her show, publicity-wise. So that's what I meant when I said I think Daredevil is incredibly popular, but I will say that I think that Daredevil Season 2 doesn't have the same heat as Jessica Jones did or Daredevil Season 1 did. So I'm very curious to see how it does. We won't really maybe ever know because they don't divulge the numbers, but I'm very curious to see how Daredevil Season 2 comes across because of, a little bit lack of buzz, and also they changed the showrunner. So we'll see how it is in terms of quality. But anyway, that's my answer to your question, Sam. I don't think House of Cards is as big a deal as Game of Thrones, Mad Men, or Breaking Bad, and I think it's because it's not on weekly and therefore is not really a part of the pop culture landscape. That's how I would describe it. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on today's top 3 stories down below and your own thoughts on Sam's question. Let me know anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. And be sure to write question, because that's how I find the questions. I do a search in the window for question, and then I just go through the comments really quickly that way. So if you don't write question, I'm not going to see your question. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.